McCaffrey when her car broke down. An 81-year-old motorist stopped to give her a lift, but exited a ramp too fast, and the car flipped over. Dottie West's liver was damaged in that accident. She's been plagued with money problems in recent years, filed for bankruptcy a year ago, but kept right on singing to the very end. West may be best remembered for her 1974 hit, Country Sunshine.
If Mayor Joseph Santopietro loses his re-election bid in Waterbury this fall, he could be eligible for nearly $33,000 in city benefits. The Waterbury Republican-American reports that guidelines written by Santopietro in 1986 allow the mayor, his staff, and appointees to cash in up to 180 days of accumulated sick time. The paper says that if Santopietro has taken no sick days in office, he'll have 108 to cash in at his daily pay rate of $305. Santopietro, believed to be a target of an ongoing federal grand jury investigation into alleged municipal corruption, had no comment to the paper.
Connecticut's job picture is bleak and getting worse all the time. That's what some experts are saying tonight about the employment outlook in the region. And it looks like white-collar jobs are being hit the hardest. Business editor Jim Vicevich joins us from the newsroom with more on that. Jim?
Well, Janet, it used to be companies would cut the assembly line first. Blue-collar workers would take the hit when it came to pink slips. White-collar workers or salaried workers escaped, but no longer. And with the state's unemployment rate rising, middle management layoffs are becoming an ever bigger part of the picture.
Well, I think she must be away from her desk, but could I just leave my name and number?
Bob Knight's an attorney. Bill Loudermilk and Steve Denker are both managers. And all three are unemployed. Part of a growing number of white-collar workers in Connecticut without jobs.
No, when I was in law school, I never dreamed that at age 47 I would be unemployed.
Just doesn't something, what's wrong with this picture kind of thing, huh?
Well, I've spent the past 7 months asking myself that.
Does that surprise you?
After working in this area for 20-something years, yes, it does, because we've never experienced anything like it is outside right now.
And what's outside right now is bad, even worse in New England. According to the American Management Association, 65% of the companies surveyed in New England have cut jobs, and that compares to just 55% nationwide. What's more, 20% of the cuts have been in middle management, even though middle management accounts for just 5% of all employment.
Really competitive?
Oh, yes, exceptionally so. I mean, just try responding to an ad in the Hartford Courant or the Boston Globe or the Wall Street Journal. I mean, you're competing with hundreds of resumes.
What's new, the experts say, isn't so much the fact that white-collar workers are getting laid off. It's not new that lawyers and engineers and accountants are getting pink slips. No, they say that's not new. What's new, they say, is the sheer numbers of white-collar workers that are getting laid off. What's more, they say, it's probably going to keep right on growing.
We're going to continue to see the organizations becoming more horizontal, fewer levels of management. That's going to continue. I don't see any change in that.
Have a resume ready and protect themselves by having Plan B, always having Plan B, so that they don't walk into their office one morning and have their supervisor shut the door and say he has something very unpleasant to discuss.
Which is what
happened to me. Yeah.
One other note about the state's unemployment rate, which rose to 6.6% in July. Some insist that still doesn't tell the whole story. Well, the three people we talked with today are not counted in the unemployment rate because they are still receiving severance pay. They say watch for Connecticut's unemployment rate to grow in a big way as they and others like them begin collecting unemployment instead of severance. Janet, Gerry?
All right, Dark News, Jim. See you at 5:30. Thanks.
Wanda Holloway was begging for leniency from a Houston court today. Instead, she got 15 years in prison and has been fined $15,000. The Texas mother was convicted yesterday in the cheerleader hitman case. She was on the stand during the punishment phase of her trial. Holloway telling the judge she never meant for anything to happen to the woman whose murder she planned and apologized for destroying their family. Holloway says she thinks the trial has been punishment enough for her crime. She wanted to be placed on probation. Updating the explosion in the North Carolina chicken processing plant, smoke was the major reason 25 workers died there yesterday. Today, investigators were trying to figure out how many exits had been locked, blocking speedy getaways after the fire started in one of the fryers. A padlock was placed on a door marked "Fire Door, Do Not Block." The plant didn't have a sprinkler system, and it hasn't been determined yet if the fire extinguisher went off automatically above that fryer. It could take 2 months to piece together the facts that led to the fatal blaze at the Imperial Food Products plant in Hamlet.
A hostage situation is going on right now in Phoenix, Arizona. One person is dead, at least 2 police officers and a number of civilians have been shot by a gunman. A neighborhood has been sealed off and the unidentified man is holed up in a house with a hostage. Witnesses say the gunman shot a girl as she rode by the house on her bike. Few other details right now. We'll have them as they become available. The Milford Plaza Hotel heavily advertises itself as the toast of Broadway, but today the hotel became a fortress. 2 Maryland men and a New Jersey man under arrest tonight following a standoff with police at the hotel. Police say a 14-year-old girl told them she'd been raped in a 5th-floor room. Officers went up. They saw 3 men, one with a sawed-off shotgun. Shots were fired. Police swarmed to the scene, and after a standoff, the 3 surrendered. Among the charges, attempted murder of a police officer.
Checking Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrial is closing back 9 points at 3,008. An active day, 158 million shares on today's big board.
A little bit stickier today, but really not that bad at all, was it?
No. Charlie, what does the rest of the week look like for us?
Well, here's the situation right now. Let's go back to noontime. There are some showers moving into the northern Berkshires. Right now, there's some showers moving into the Boston area, some heading towards Poughkeepsie. We've stayed dry all afternoon. Got a great radar picture. I'll show you that. And I'll give you the forecast as it does call for improving conditions. First, let's get back into you, Janet, and to you, Jerry, in the studio.
Okay, we'll look for you a little bit later.
All right. And first, let's go to Dan Opolsky in the Loctite Samaritan van for a look at your afternoon traffic. Dan.
Good afternoon. Waterbury checking in. No problems this afternoon so far. Route 8, Route 84 in good shape. New Haven, 95 northbound, a little bit of traffic going across the Q Bridge. That's pretty much normal. Anybody traveling the Merritt Parkway southbound in the area of exit 48, we do have a report of a 1-car accident affecting traffic in both directions, northbound for rubbernecking. In Hartford, usual delays in and out of the city on 84-91. The heaviest traffic right now, 84 eastbound through the city and 91 north across the Dexter-Kaufman Bridge. From the Loctite Samaritan van, I'm Dan Opolsky with a Channel 3 traffic check.
Thank you, Dan. Coming up, if you find yourself taking care of not only your children, but your parents as well, you're part of the sandwich generation. We'll talk about it later.
And it won't be long before you start giving part of your paycheck to the state, but just how much will you owe? Well, the director of the state's tax services joins us with answers to those questions and others when we come back. Hope you stick around. Denise. Coming up tonight on Eyewitness News 5:30, the recession continues to hit Connecticut. Bank foreclosures have jumped. We'll have that story. And in our 5:30 Extra, a new way of renting home videos that makes watching the latest releases a breeze. Join us at 5:30. In tonight's 5 o'clock focus, we take your taxing questions. You may not want to think about it, but in less than 4 weeks, more money will start disappearing from your paycheck to give the state coffers your share of the income tax. All state residents will begin to pay on October 1st. From the moment Richard Balducci brought down the gavel in the House to end the budget battle to the signing ceremony as Governor Weicker took pen in hand to make that 4.5% income tax law, there have been questions about what it all means to our billfolds. Well, the state's tax hotline has been inundated with calls from those who need more information, and we thought you might also. And joining us to answer yours, the Director of Taxpayer Services for the state, Elaine Leon. It's Elaine's birthday, so she was nice enough to take her birthday off to come on. Thanks, Elaine. It's good to have you here.
You're quite welcome.
What income will Connecticut tax? Let's look at that first.
Okay, well, for tax year 1991, which we're in right now, all of a Connecticut resident's adjusted gross income will be subject to tax at 1.5%.
Okay. We're going to get these questions up if we can, as I tell you what they are. Now, what are the personal exemptions?
Okay, any person who is single or who is married and filing separately is entitled to personal exemptions. Now, for somebody who has an income level between $0 and $24,000, they're entitled to an exemption of $12,000. That exemption then begins to get reduced at $1,000 the higher you go until you reach $35,001, at which point it disappears.
It ends.
That's right.
Tax credits. Okay. Or the personal exemptions. How are your tax credits applied?
Okay, after a person determines what their Connecticut taxable income is, which is their adjusted gross minus their exemption if they're entitled to one, then they will figure out their tax by multiplying that amount times 1.5%. Once they get the tax due, if they're entitled to a credit, and again that is a reducing credit depending on income level, and they will then take a percentage of the tax and subtract it from the tax due. Some people, for example, in the lower income tax brackets may have a 75% credit and may only have to pay 25% of the tax that's otherwise due.
I'm sure they'll be glad to hear that. Now,
Yes.
are Social Security benefits taxed?
That's a big question. We have a lot of people who are receiving Social Security benefits and very concerned. That will depend on whether or not those benefits are taxed for federal income tax purposes. We'll do exactly what the federal government does. And most Social Security benefits are not. So that's the good news.
Okay, so you know if you're taxed already by the federal government, you will be by the state. Are 401ks and deferred compensation contributions taxed?
Another very popular question. The answer is that those are not part of your federal adjusted gross income. Those are before tax dollars that you contribute to future pension plans, future retirement, and they will not be taxed by the state.
Elaine Leon, happy birthday again.
Well, thank you.
Thanks
I
for being
appreciate
with
it.
us. Okay, thanks for those answers. Again, and the state income tax will be taken out of your paycheck starting October 1st. So if you have any questions that we haven't answered here today, here's that toll-free number to call again. It is 1-800-3, don't forget that 3, 1-800-3-TAX-INFO. We'll be back in a moment. Jerry?
Thank you, Janet, and the cake is coming. Just ahead, we've seen the sun. Charlie says we may see some rain soon. He'll join us with the forecast and new life for the old home of South Catholic High School. We'll have the story when we come back in 60 seconds.
Tonight, Ellington finally has a school budget, but other districts are hurting.
Don Lark standing by with first details on tonight's top story at 6. Don.
Jerry and Janet, Ellington taxpayers voted a total of 7 times before coming across with the money, but cash continues to be a problem there and for other districts throughout the state. And Channel 3's Glenn Pearson is finding that cutbacks are the order of the day.
We have taken a very, very serious hit in our educational programs.
The angry reaction to talk of increased driver's license fees has apparently reached Connecticut lawmakers. They're considering a package of fee increases and state employee pay raises tonight. We'll have the latest at 6 o'clock. A week ahead of the primaries, and we'll outline the key contests. Beginning tonight with reporter Diane Overio profiling this showdown between Perry and Jackson in Hartford. And an influential audience for the disaster drill simulating an oil spill today on Long Island Sound. Shoreline Bureau Chief Allison Schaefer reports from the scene. Also tonight, Danbury's going to hang on to a hot weather record, and the cops catch a crook at Paul Newman's camp. It's all coming up on Channel 3's Eyewitness News at 6 o'clock. Jerry, Janet.
Thank you, Donald.
Some changes ahead in the forecast, it appears. Charlie Bagley standing by at the maps with the latest.
Okay, Jerry, here's the situation on the weather. It started out with a bright, sunny sky, but then clouds did move in during the middle part of the day. In fact, this is what the clouds are right now. If we look at the current conditions at downtown Hartford, we're showing a temperature right now 78 degrees, the dew point 64. The wind is from the southeast at 8 miles an hour, and the pressure 29.98 inches of mercury. Okay, back look at those clouds again. First, look at this beautiful shot today. That was taken early this morning down in Norwalk. And again, there was some sunshine. If they heard my forecast last evening, I talked about the clouds, I talked about showers. No showers in Norwalk yet, no showers in Hartford yet, but showers in the area. Now here's where the cloud cover is, and the trailing edge of that is where the cool front is. In front of it, again, they've been spilling in. You can still see places like Cape Cod, Providence, essentially a clear sky. As far as precipitation goes, here's the interesting thing. At noontime, there was a band of showers moving across to the northwest of us. Well, they've split now. We've had none of them, still some heading in our way, but the showers in Pennsylvania should get here overnight. And again, the national map does show that one frontal system we're concerned with. Once that moves through the area, it's going to be fair weather for the next couple of days. Tonight, again, the low pressure system is sliding into the area, and then by tomorrow morning, the threat for showers will have left southern New England, and we're going to be talking about some fair weather moving in. That's how the weather looks, and here's how the forecast reads. Across the area tonight, a few scattered showers. Sometimes won't get any rain at all, and the temperatures in low to mid-60s, mid to low 60s. And then during the day tomorrow, we're going to see the weather improving partly, then mostly sunny with a high around 80. Generally speaking, through the weekend, fair weather and cool weather. That's how I see the weather. Janet, Jerry, back to you.
Thank you, Charlie. An overreaction. That's what the congressional delegation visiting China calls an incident today in Beijing. Chinese police stopped California Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi and two other representatives after they laid flowers and held up a banner in Tiananmen Square. They were trying to pay tribute to activists killed in the 1989 pro-democracy uprising.
We've been told for 2 days now that there's freedom of speech in China.
We were trying to show in our own way that we have not forgotten those who died at Tiananmen Square.
The delegation is in China to press human rights issues. The police also scuffled with crews from CBS, ABC, and CNN. The TV crews were questioned for an hour, then released. Well, the big cross at the front door is gone. So is the chapel. You won't find any religious articles at the former South Catholic High School in Hartford today. It was reborn today as South School. About 600 5th and 6th graders have moved into the newest Hartford public school, purchased by the city to relieve overcrowding. Many of the religious articles have been relocated to other schools in the Archdiocese. The late Archbishop Whalen ordered South Catholic closed earlier this year.
Midnight Tuesday was the deadline for someone holding a New York lotto ticket worth $10 million to claim it. Kind of frightening to think the largest single lotto jackpot in history had to go back into the prize money. The $10 million single winning number was drawn on September 1st, 1990. According to lottery officials, if someone comes forward with that ticket now, they'll have to go to court to get the money, and then they may not.
We went halvesies on some Connecticut tickets yesterday, and I forgot to tell you I checked them this morning.
We didn't win?
Obviously, we're still here.
Okay. Coming up next, your kids are almost ready to leave home. Now your parents need your care.
After the break, we'll talk about the sandwich generation. You may be a part of it. Back in 60 seconds. Your caregiving years aren't over yet. Instead of your kids, it's your parents who need a hand. You are a member of the sandwich generation, and you're not alone. About 25% of Americans over 40 are involved in the care, full or part-time, of aging parents. And we're not talking about putting elderly parents in nursing homes either. 80% of the care, medical and personal, is assumed by families, and daughters outnumber sons as caregivers by a 3-to-1 margin. More than a quarter of them will have to leave jobs to give that care. Joining us now are Georgianne Romano, director of the Be Well Center at Waterbury Hospital, and Susan Spielberg, a businesswoman from Southbury and a sandwich generation survivor. Georgianne, let me begin with you. How do most people react when they suddenly find themselves stuck in the middle, the filling of the sandwich?
I think many people react with a great deal of frustration and have a lot of difficulty, suddenly find themselves in a position where they thought they were going to be free and begin to do all the things they wanted to do as they got older and find out that they have responsibilities that they didn't count on having.
Susan, your situation made even more difficult by the fact that your folks are in Florida. Your father diagnosed with Alzheimer's, your mother had cancer surgery. How did you react to suddenly being the one to take care of your parents?
There was a lot of anger and frustration, and I think the most difficult time was finally making the realization come true that you had to take over the role and do role reversal to become the parent to the child when it became a matter of safety and health.
So you became a parent to your parents?
Right.
Is that wise, Georgianne, to become a parent?
Well, it's only wise in a situation where health and welfare are at stake. To do that, short of those things occurring, can be a fatal mistake.
Does it put stress on a marriage, I would think? Why is it that daughters tend to be the caregivers as opposed to the sons?
Well, I just think in our society it's a cultural thing. Women are generally the caregivers, and in this situation it's no different.
Did that develop any problems, any stress in your relationships with the people at home, your husband, your children?
No, my husband was very supportive. I worked well with my sister, but I really feel that it was important that we got a case manager, and that really took a lot of the pressure off of us.
Somebody there to oversee
Yes.
it. What advice would you give to somebody who suddenly finds themselves in the middle?
You have to be very careful not to get emotionally drawn in so that it takes away from your own life. You have to try to remain as objective as possible, and I think the most important thing is to maintain a sense of humor and find somebody to talk to about what's going on.
Talking helps, Georgianne?
Oh, absolutely. And stress reduction, because of all the frustration and the anger and the guilt that's involved in being in the middle, it's very important to do things for yourself, to take time out, to be sure that if in the case where you're the primary caregiver, that you do whatever you can do to find some assistance in caring for the elderly parent, that you don't do the entire thing that yourself, to remember that you are a person who has needs as well.
All right, your turn. Romano and Susan Spielberg, thanks for joining us. Good advice from both of you. Appreciate it. We'll be right back. And if you want more information, by the way, on the sandwich generation, we have a couple of numbers you can call. You can call Connecticut Community Care Incorporated in the Hartford area, 522-6688. You can also call the Evergreen Club 50 at Waterbury Hospital. Their number is 573-7385. Now, we'll be right back.